Okay, so we did the pre-writing part of the writing process. Now it's the writing part, which is the second stage of the writing process. However, when I say second stage, it's not necessarily a linear function. We don't necessarily go pre-writing to writing and then never go back to pre-writing. You may go back to pre-writing as you're writing for more help, but we will start with writing. Okay, so writing basics. To get your first draft going, some people have trouble getting started. And you need to remember, your first draft doesn't have to be perfect. It's your first draft. The biggest thing on the first draft is just to write and get things down on paper. Let your pre-writing guide you. Focus your ideas and organize them, but write rapidly and use your natural feeling. Don't go back and do revising and editing at this point. Just write what comes to you and write to get it on paper. That's your first draft. Your second draft is when you go back and do a quick cleanup. So really when we say first draft, usually your first draft can be 2 or 3 drafts of initial writing. Parts of writing would be the beginning. You write your beginning paragraph or paragraphs, and that would be your introduction. And that's important to capture your reader's attention. Tell them why they want to read, why they should read, why they should continue to read, and state the focus of the writing so they want to continue reading. In the example, what they use to capture the reader's attention is, if you think Christopher Columbus was the first old world explorer to discover the New World, you're off by at least 500 years. And the focus of their paper is the evidence indicates that several countries could lay claim to arriving here before Columbus. So, capturing your reader's attention. This is difficult for a lot of people and something that you should really put a lot of time at working at. You could start with a question. However, my experience with that, if you start with a question and the answer is not what you want, they may not continue reading. So you need to be careful when starting with a question. You can start with a surprising fact. So the examples we have. If the question would be, which old world explorer first discovered the New World? That would be starting with a question. Starting with a surprising fact would be, if you think Christopher Columbus was the first old world explorer to discover the New World, you're off by at least 500 years. You can start with a quotation. Perhaps, after all, America never has been discovered. I myself would say that it had merely been detected, wrote Oscar Wilde. That would be starting with a quotation. And starting with an anecdote. These are good for narratives, biographies, autobiographies. Short stories sometimes are good to start with an anecdote, but the example is, when my grandfather visited from Norway, he told me how the Vikings were the first Europeans in the New World. So you can see 4 different examples of how you can catch the reader's attention. Then, starting with your focus. Most writing, as we talked about in the pre-writing, has a focus statement. A narrative, expository, and research paper has a thesis statement. A persuasive essay has an opinion statement. Fictional narratives create a focus by establishing a setting, main characters, and conflict. An example of a thesis statement would be: first Old World explorers of the New World were as diverse as the melting pot in this country. The opinion statement: Columbus's arrival in the Western world hemisphere should not be called a discovery of a new world. So you can see that. Okay. Your middle paragraphs. Each middle paragraph presents a main point. And I can tell you should have 3. Remember our 5-paragraph essay, or if we haven't got to it yet, that's a good video to watch because you will be constantly reminded of the 5-paragraph essay. Your intro being your beginning, your middle is your 3-body paragraph. So you start each body section with a topic sentence. Then you add your supporting details. Then you use transitions to connect these ideas and provide an ending sentence to wrap that section up, transition into the next section. So you can see the example. Topic sentence, the supporting details, and the ending sentence. And that is 1 body paragraph or 1 body section. You would have at least 3 of those. Understanding transitions. This is a good slide to pay a lot of attention to. Transitions are words or phrases that connect ideas. If you start a lot of sentences with I or me or them, I seems to be a lot of them. You need to begin sentences with transition words to help clarify things and also make the writing with a little bit more variety. So, transitions show location, show time, compare ideas, contrast ideas, emphasize a point, conclude or summarize, add information, and clarify. And they give some simple examples above the table, later that day. Again, it can be seen, in addition, etc., etc. Transitions should be used both within a paragraph and between paragraphs. When they're within a paragraph, they connect supporting details. When they're between paragraphs, they transition. So let's look at the examples. So, however, within the paragraph, in addition to the Vikings, is between paragraphs. In the end, or your conclusion. So your ending paragraph, do the following things. You should restate your focus, remind the reader why they just read what they read, summarize main points or reasons, and leave the reader with something to think about. Sometimes this is called a call to action. A call to action tells them what they can do. If there's an organization they can go help out, or if there's a law they can vote for, or something to tell them what they can do with what you've just told them. If it's not persuasive, you don't need a call to action. You just need to leave the reader more informed and more interested than when they began reading. So the example, you can see that. Okay, so that was the writing stage, and I'm sure that was just as exciting, or maybe even more so, than the pre-writing stage. Your next video will be over the revising stage, so stay tuned.